I am Betty Hunlock. It is my joy to introduce Robin Modifair. Robin is a conscious channel and light facilitator for Source Light and Ami.
Hi, Betty. Good to be here.
Oh,
so nice
great.
to come in. Yeah, it's so nice to be able to talk to you about this subject. You and I have been discussing this for probably several months now. It's been building the elemental kingdoms, and this is such an interesting subject, I think, and I think we both have the same feeling on that.
Oh, yes.
I know. It's pretty deep, huh? And there's a lot of areas, so I would encourage anyone who's coming to listen to this recording to kind of take it into their own, as I always do. Please just go research some of the things that we've talked about. All we're really doing is presenting the gist of the information and some of the essence and feeling of this particular subject as it relates to possibly our own experiences in life and what we know of these, wonderful, wonderful beings that exist in these kingdoms. And I'm really excited to share some of this with everyone. So the subject we're going to be talking about today is the elemental kingdoms. And this could not have come at a more important or relative time, at least as far as they're letting me know. But I think that humanity has a great internal sense that that is also true, since our planet seems to be displaying, I'm not even going to say struggling, because I don't believe she is struggling. That's just my personal feeling. But I think that there's become such a disconnect with the way in which we perceive nature, her, all of these kingdoms that we're going to be talking about, that there's a bit of imbalance and display of the intensity of that imbalance as far as the world in which we're looking at right now, and a lot of things that are going on. So I think this is why the kingdoms of nature have kind of been bringing a lot of these communications to me recently. They've come definitely through downloads, through unfolding experiences that I've had in real life lately, where nature's been talking to me, telling me and giving me experiences and information. I'm sure that there have been lots of people on this planet that have been receiving such things as well. But they've been coming nonstop. And this kind of triggered me to take a deeper look at all of this and to really reach out through this world and through all the energies and sources I can find to try to pull this information together and be able to bring it forth in a way that might help humanity reweave itself, reknit itself back into a better relationship with nature itself. And this nature itself is, of course, our nature as well. So all of us being connected, all of us being one. Many people have their own idea about this distancing and why it might be happening. And there's a lot of talk about that in the spiritual world, as well as the non-spiritual world. Everything is spiritual, but you know what I'm saying. Maybe not in those arenas, but in other arenas where it's being considered as well. And the kingdoms are telling me that is to an extent true, but that humans, because we think with our human minds and have our perception of everything, are not perceiving it absolutely correctly. So they're here to help us to get a better understanding of that today. And as you and I talk and go about sharing our experiences and talking about some of these things, it's their hope and it's our hope that people will come to understand that these are living expressions, that they're just as real as we are, and that the essential light of these kingdoms that we're going to be discussing are alive and well, and more than well. They're active and intelligent entities. They exist just as we do. it may be difficult for people to grasp or even choose to believe that they are those who control their select and sovereign realms of existence. But here is the real reason that it's so important, Betty, that you and I are here to talk about this, in my opinion. It's because every one of those kingdoms are within our own bodies. They're in our bones, our blood, and our breath. That's why it's meant, or what it's meant, when we say we're one with everything. Because we literally are and are inseparable. Humanity has lost its memory of this, in the opinion of them and so many that are really connected with these particular kingdoms. And because they've lost a connection with this magical, mystical, and amazing truth of our wholeness, that we are as woven and interconnected with each of these realms of existence as we are to our own limbs. The environmental kingdoms are now screaming for our attention to this matter, for us to awaken to our unity with all that is, i.e. earth changes, animal encounters, the plant world, natural disasters, and crises of humanity, famine, pestilence, war, etc., as well as wonderful and seemingly mystical experiences between man and animals. And I'm sure that most of us are quite amazed when we see those cute little videos, of the most unusual animals interacting with humans or with each other. It's quite amazing. But this is their way of speaking to us, of telling us what is possible, what is the potential. And I think also showing us how deeply thoughtful and intelligent they are, that they are thinking entities. And we have not, in this world, in this realm, truly understood that for some time. There was a time when we did. There was a time when humanity lived very closely with all of that, but we've moved very far away from that right now. So whether you listen to this conversation and decide that it resonates with you or not, for me, and I believe for most anything, everyone, it's really not important if they believe it or they don't, but I hope that it might make them think and perhaps bring yet another step closer to understanding why we have chosen this topic as one of our key subjects for today. So hopefully this information should unlock a very different and wondrous new understanding of we are one with everything. So if it's okay with you, what do you think about us beginning by discussing the different kingdoms and how they interplay with us in our human form here and now? And I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are so far on this, if you'd like to add anything.
It's just beautiful because as we have been working together, and I just have been feeling like it's a warm hug. It just brings me so much joy to be examining at different levels these kingdoms and the specifics. And it's like a reminder, these are our family. All these beings are here to support us as we support them. And it just feels so good. So if anybody gets a sense of that, then we have done our job.
Oh, yay. I love that. That's so true. Okay. So we could probably quit now. So as we start to begin to discuss this, one definition of the elemental kingdoms refers to a collection of planes. And the last conversation we had were on the higher planes of existence. So now we're going to talk about the elemental kingdoms, which are in this material, physical light kind of expression. And it's a collection of planes aligned with the primordial elements of the cosmos. Okay, that primordial will be like the more originating, ancestral, primal, primary even element of our particular universe, cosmos, or creation. In this definition, it's believed that there are currently 6 of them known as elemental kingdoms that have been visited by mortals. Now, this is, of course, according to some people's belief systems around this. So we're going to present you with all of this stuff. What are the 4 elemental spirits? The elements of earth, water, air, and fire were classified as the fundamental building blocks of nature. Okay, so we've got earth, water, air, and fire. This system prevailed in the classical world and was highly influential in medieval natural philosophy. So it was around a very, very long time. And it is to this day. It is important to note that we are all acutely aware that we are all evolving at quite a rapid rate now. So the elements have asked us, the elementals have asked us to bring forward certain matters which concern mankind's evolution. So I'm sure you're noticing already that I'm making certain adjustments and corrections in my speech as I'm talking to you, and that's because they're telling me to. So I'm interpreting these things as we're going, because sometimes I say something and they go, that's not it. So, okay, I have to back up and I have to say it a different way. As I understand them to say, I'm hesitating now, evolution is dependent upon man's relationship with certain spiritual powers in this time, and those have a direct effect on the Earth's future. So our relationship with these powers has a direct effect on humans' potential and our Earth's future. In the solid Earth element, live beings of an elemental kind who are very much more clever than human beings are, who as super-sensible entities live in the realm of solid Earth. So we have these really, really sharp, incredibly clever, as they're saying, and they're super sensitive, okay? That doesn't always make for easy to work with, but we are learning today how we can do that and do it well, and still maintain our relationship with them and with all of life. So when one could say that just as man consists of flesh and blood, so do these beings consist of cleverness, of super cleverness. Another of the peculiarities is that they prefer to live in multitudes. So there's a lot of them. When one is in a position to find out how many of these beings there are, it's sort of like if you're going to use an description, you could squeeze them out as if from a sponge in a spiritual sense, of course, and out they would flow in an endless stream. So there's that many of them. But counting these in these particular kingdoms is a very difficult task. And again, due to their cleverness, because they can, in a sense, kind of shapeshift. They can appear to be 1, they can appear to be 12, they can appear to be 7. And so when you start to look at them or count them, and this is in the, when we talk about these things, it's done through people who've had communications with these elemental kingdoms and their trickery, the ways in which they present themselves. They have the ability to move in like a flash, and they can also appear as one is expressing to you. It can make you see 12 or 82, whatever it wants to do. We'll get into more of their cleverness and their abilities here as we go on, because they embody a lot of like telepathy, reading your mind. They know your thoughts. They can sense your feelings. So there's a lot of stuff that they're able to do.
It sounds like we could learn a lot from them.
We could learn a lot from them, and we better. I think is more the point here, is that it's time for us to wake up and smell the coffee, because we're not like the most clever thing on the block. Anyway, So where did I go with the cleverness part? So these, we are kind of students of these beings in a way, because we are a student of our environment, of everything in the elements, everything around us. And we're learning a lot from these encounters and the experiences with them. The fact that they are calling, screaming for us to wake up, to begin these communications is really, really a good sign. I'm hoping that people aren't going to really take the negative on this, because there is a sense kind of urgency with them, but there's also they're reaching out. And if they're reaching out to me, that's a good sign. That's a sign that they're ready to communicate with us, that they're willing to take that extra step, even though, you know, we haven't given them a lot of reasons to do that in the past decades here. Not taking really good care of their kingdoms, not really evolving as quickly as we might in our understanding of who they are, what they are, and what their abilities are. And that, you know, they've always, like you were saying earlier, here to, in the capacity to support us in our journey and our path through life itself, as they do theirs. So I think that that's a really good sign. So, you know, we talk about all this cunning and trickery and all of that. That's just to give you an idea of how they express and what they're capable of, that can be used for good or not good. So, and that's a judgment. You know, we're looking at that from our point of view. So we judge whether it's good or it's not. We'll talk more about that too later. These beings that so we can neither see nor feel them in the direct sense. So they always kind of give us the impression, or they will give us an experience of them being all around us. We can experience it through the air, through earth, through fire, and through water. You know, and we call these beings elementals, although they are sometimes known as fairies in certain realms. There is a person called a man named David Furlong who's written quite lengthy on this subject and is quite the expert as that I can see from everything that I've read that he's put out. It sounds to me as though he spent truly a lot of time with these worlds. And so he talks about many traditional cultures have sensed the presence of these spirits in nature. You and I were talking about, what was it that you were expressing to me about Chinese? They,
feng shui.
Yeah. And their usage of that.
Right, that's what I was thinking. So many of us are interested in how we can utilize or engage with the elemental kingdom to enhance our experience. And feng shui came to mind as trying to bring balance into an environment that we live in to support that experience. And and just, you know, experiencing nature, looking at the flowers that are blooming right now in the spring, and the different, looking at the sky, enjoying our experience of existing. So all of this is showing up and coming together in a beautiful blooming. But this information is taking me to a different understanding, different levels of understanding how it all works together. And like you mentioned before, the oneness, the unity.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I know. I loved it when you brought that up, because it does bring it right up to our time, to show us how we still incorporate those kind of things to bring about a better environment, a better experience of our own life and for others too. These beings that we talk about, or that Furlong talks about as well, of the elemental natures are beings that inhabit such realms as caves. They're in waterfalls, mountains, and such are conscious like you and I. Although obviously they have a very different way of connecting to the physical world than we do, these nature spirits usually abide in trees, rivers, plants, bogs, mountains, and minerals. They attach themselves to practically everything natural. We call them by a myriad of names. They have been called fairies, elves, divas, nymphs, gnomes. There's actually some consider angels as being these elementals as well, some levels of angels. Elementals have similarities to other nature spirits. They work on feelings, sensations, and symbolism. They are not a being in the same way other fairies are. They are more like a form of living energy than anything else. An energy emotions without being emotional. That's crazy, isn't it? And that is constantly changing. They can be of tremendous aid to you in magical workings, but only if you approach them properly. If you have a strong clairvoyant gift, you may be able to see them. Young children often claim that they have, and that and they're probably telling you the truth. With a little practice, it's quite possible for us to sense their presence, and if you're lucky to see them clairvoyantly, it's then possible to begin to communicate with these beings. Many of us, even, yes, you, may have been fortunate enough to regain your memory of this as you work with these realms once again, because it's deeply, deeply implanted, ingrained in us. Spirits of the four elements we're going to talk about now. These spirits of the elements are divided into four categories. There's earth, air, fire, and water. Let us look at every one of them in turn. Okay, so we're going to take them one by one. And again, I'm going to bring in David Furlong's talk about them, the way that he writes and speaks about them. So this is his interpretation. Earth spirits, those are the beings which relate to rocks, stones, minerals, precious gems, hills, and mountains, and are traditionally called gnomes. Okay, and I'm sure everybody's heard that word before. So all aspects of the solid physical structure of the planet come under their domain. They are sort of in charge of that domain. They take dominion of it. Although they can be found within rocks, they also have a freedom to move around, but generally stay close to the ground. So that's why you always see them kind of small. Even the little statues they have in people's yards and stuff are quite small. So there's some more on them later. So they're not necessarily small. They can be any size or any shape that they want to be, but that's what they prefer, I hear. So the next is water. So water spirits are connected to all liquids, all right? But their presence can be felt in a much more powerful way by streams, oceans, lakes, rivers, those kind of things. They are traditionally known as undines or ondines. There's two different spellings, U-N-D-I-N-E-S or O-N-D-I-N-E-S. Although stories and these, so, okay, this might sound really strange, but not. Here we go again. The undines or ondines, of course, refer to mermaids or mermen. And there are many, many accounts of these throughout history and throughout time as well. The next are air. Air spirits of the air are connected to all gaseous substances. But like water beings, they are best sensed in winds or breezes because air moves so quickly. They can be difficult to pin down. They're also known as sylphs in tradition, although the perception of a fairy with tiny wings that can fly is a close approximation to how they appear to children. So I think that what it's saying here, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that sylphs are probably more like light that just moves and flickers and has an energy to it. It moves so fast that you can't really stabilize it, kind of like a hummingbird used to. I mean, you've noticed hummingbirds have slowed down a lot. They don't really move like that anymore. And that's a really interesting little tidbit too, but I don't want to bring that up right now, maybe later. The fairies, it sounds like, or the sylphs do this. So every now and then, I think when they're showing, like it spoke of here early, they can project a symbol, or they can make you see things, or they can throw in a thought into your mind so that you may perceive these. And maybe for children or for other people, they look or appear for a moment like they have wings or something, to give the human person the understanding of what it is that they're seeing, that they're seeing something, they're looking at something. But they're not actually fairies with wings. Fire. Okay, so we're on to fire element. Fire spirits can be found in volcanoes in nature, but also in any fire, from a candle to an inferno. Now these, I've done some more reading on too. This is just a really short explanation of it right here, but many of you might want to go and really look this up, because the fire element is quite fascinating and a little bit more unlimited than the rest of them, which I found really interesting. They're known as salamanders or vulcani. They're the most difficult of all the elements to connect with, being said to only associate with philosophers and adepts of the magical arts. The connection that these beings have with the physical world is very, very different from the way that our spirits link, I guess, to the physical. There is a relationship through resonance with these beings, and they're not tied to the physical form in the same way that we are. It is true that a rock may be inhabited by an earth being or gnome, but it relates more to its natural home. They move home from time to time, just as we do. Fire elements can be present in a room or place without the physical expression of their element there. So they don't need to have fire there for them to be present in a place, which is really, really interesting. I'm not sure I quite grasp all of that, but it'd be interesting to explore that a bit more, for everyone maybe. So having said all that about fire, which is really interesting, let's talk a little bit about the evolution of our souls as it connects to what we're talking about with these elements. The evolution of our souls, we choose, when your soul comes into incarnations, we can choose one of these states as the point of origin for our experience of the soul to begin. In other words, to be our initiation point, in which we can learn and process through this vector of experience in order to attain a more collective and enlightened expression of soul. So when people talk about incarnations, or we've been all there is to be, or, this is just another one of those pieces that brings in how interconnected, interwoven, how we are one with everything, and how everything is one with us. There's a point where the soul begins to develop, and the reason that they say that we have to have a starting point, and oftentimes it's within the elemental kingdom, is because for a soul to understand creation, or the creation it's moving into, it needs to understand the building blocks of that creation. So we'll pick one of those, usually, one of those elements, and stick with it for quite a long time. As I understand it, it says that this vector of creation is explored by the soul, and it helps us to have our initiation into our experience as being a human being. So according to many ancient philosophers, there are 4 categories of elements, which are gnomes, undines, sylphs, and salamanders. All right, so that would be earth, air, fire, and water. Again, we'll be leaning heavily on many sources of information written by many well-researched individuals regarding this subject. This Betty and I do, again, and I always like to put this in here so that we can present you the most well-rounded presentation for this subject matter, and later at the perfect time bring forth a deeper look at some of these conversations, so that if any of you are interested or really just having fun with this, you can join us and take the deep dive with us. Elemental evolution is like all spirit essences. These beings commence their evolutionary cycle with a choice in the way they wish to explore physicality. So they have the option of choosing which element they're going to be, whether it's going to be earth, air, fire, or water. As a starting point, this element spirit therefore has additional choices on whether to start their spiritual journey as a gnome, a sylph, undine, or a salamander. Again, we wonder why we have these deep, deep ingrained loves for mermaids, you know, for fairies, for like we were talking about. But they've obviously been around a very, very long time. And they're deep, deep, deep in our makeup, in our, I'm going to say our DNA. So these elements evolve first through learning to manipulate and understand their own element before progressing into embodiment, or to embody the qualities of another element. For example, an earth elemental or a gnome that's associated with a group of rocks by the seashore may eventually come to understand and appreciate the role of the undines or water beings, because it's watching them. It's a rock by the water or the ocean, so it's seeing and experiencing and bumping kind of up against them and stuff. So this development process continues until eventually all 4 elements are assimilated within the soul, at which stage the elemental being is given a new accolade of being called a diva. Am I moving too quickly? Do you have anything you want to add?
No, that's great. I'm just really in awe of the different levels and how they come together and work together, and how, you know, what their application is to our existence. So thank you.
So cool. Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm thanking a lot of these people who've you know, done their deep dives too, and obviously some research and on the subject in order that we can bring this forward. So the next one that it wants to talk about is the divas. Okay, divas in itself, this is a Sanskrit word from the Hindu tradition, which literally means shining one. I thought that was neat. However, Christian, Judaic, and Islamic cultures know these beings as angels, of which the cherubim and the seraphim are a part. Pardon me, now I got the hiccups. It is sometimes confusing today when people run courses about connecting with your guardian angels, for in these cases we're dealing with Homo sapiens spirits and not spirits connected to the diva and elemental kingdoms. So I think I'll just do a little brief interjection in this. I think, again, what this means is that most people are talking about angels or angelics that are of a higher, more spirit light order, as opposed to the elemental kingdom divics that we're talking about, which are expressed very differently and are more attached to the physical elements. So once divahood has been gained, the elemental, and that's the accumulation of all of these elements, right? Then they achieve divahood. has been gained, the elemental or angelic being then takes on a greater and greater responsibility looking after whole areas of land or sea. So you're becoming responsible for groups of spirits, which are part of its routine. There are divas which look after towns and cities as well as tracts of the countryside. So they're relating now, there's divic spirits. And I want to just talk about, I had a past life regression once where my very first one, I was nothing but spirit. And there were no people on the earth yet. But I remember traveling in the air, and I was moving through wind, I was moving through the air, and I was moving through all the animals that were on the earth. There were just multitudes and multitudes of animals. I was moving into the ocean, into the sea. I was moving through clouds. I was, when I came out of it, I kept thinking, okay, I was thinking of it in terms of being that light angelic essence spirit. But when I began to study this information, I thought, oh my goodness, that might have been a moment in my own genetic memory where I was experiencing this particular moment in my own soul's evolution, where I felt connected and unlimited, limitless, basically, but moving through everything and being a part of everything, that soul that watches over and extends and cares for all of these things. That was just kind of interesting to me. So if any of you are having memories of that or anything like that, it could very much be that rather than some other way you're perceiving it, which really doesn't matter. But it was really cool because I'd never seen this explained before when you connect to your divahood. Let's see. So once you've developed this divahood, at the top of the metaphoric tree is what they call the planetary diva, which many people nowadays have come to call Gaia. Okay, Gaia would be, the Earth, the planetary essence. So more information will be given on this being shortly, but before we do this, let's take a deeper look into how we can cooperate with the diva and the elemental kingdom. So when we want to communicate, elementals communicate with us through telepathic images, presenting information on things they know and understand. So they communicate telepathically. I've run into many courses showing people how they can communicate with these realms. In the first instance, you need to believe in their existence, okay? And this can be hard for some people who are brought up in very rational ways. Once the bridge has been crossed, there's a rich world waiting to be explored. So my thinking as I was writing this is that once you've had an experience that pleases you, or your mind puts your mind into a completely different framework. In other words, there's no way to file an experience that comes from out of your normal or all experience that you've had so far. Then you don't know what to do with it. But once that has happened to you, the bridge is there. There's no way to blow the bridge up. I mean, you've crossed over it and it's there. You can deny it, you can put walls up, you can, try to block it, but it's still there. So I thought that was kind of neat too, that,
in my case, the unseen world is what shows up in my hallucinations. Something that I can't prove, but it's such a deep knowing that it exists, and it's where, in my case, the magic occurs because I have that belief, although I don't see them. And I appreciate people who do or have the experiences. However, that's not my experience in life. And it just brings me, once again, so much joy to know that these beings, these elementals are right there. They're right beside us all the time. They're in our field.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And another thing I'd like to say in response to what you just said, because I think it's important that people know that, you said something about there's no way for you to prove that, and it doesn't matter because that's just, what your experience with it is, and that's your truth. I think that is really the case for anybody, even if people who have seen them, if that is what's happened, how their gifts work or how the experience happened to them, because I can honestly tell you that anytime it's ever happened to me, I was not looking for it. It just happened. So it had to do with a whole lot of things, just the perfect, what do you call that? The perfect conditions at the perfect time. And it just appears or it takes place. So, but there's no way that I could ever prove that to anyone. I don't think we can ever prove our own experiences to anybody. So, for everybody who may come across this, please know that that's okay. It's okay because it is real if it's real to you. And that's how you begin the work. That's how you start to set up your inner communication and your outer communication with these parts of self, these other extensions of your environment, of your co-creation, your co-created world. And I don't think there's, just like you go about your life and have experiences in your life, there's no way for us to have anybody see or experience what we just did the same way. They're just not going to. Their memory or experience or encounter with it is going to be completely different. They may remember certain things, but the overall, or maybe the essence of what it was for you and how you processed it would be completely different, right? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So this is kind of the same thing. I mean, for us to sit here, that's why it's not so important that you believe, that people believe that we're telling them the truth or this is real. We're just telling you that if you want to know if it's real, the only way you can experience is it through yourself and through your own active participation in your attempt to have a relationship with it. And there's a way you can do it. So and I didn't know that when these things happened to me. I had no idea. I wasn't out looking for communication. It usually just happened through an opening of, your heart and your spirit and something from within you, your own soul or your own essence that just reaches out into nature, into the moment, into the peace, into the earth, into the centeredness, where you're just experiencing kind of a oneness within your own self. And then it just magically sort of jumped, literally into my waking experience. So for me, that's how it took place. So again, as everything does, it always comes back to love, right? So as in those moments when we are fully in our hearts, we are love, we are in the embodiment, and it is embodying us. How can we not be one with all of this? How
Right.
can we not? How can it not show up? How can it not be if that's your resonance or even if it's maybe what's written for your journey? But there may be people who are not journeying the same way, so give yourself a break because this, like I said, they're picky. I think they're selective and kind of finicky, obviously, and they're wonderful and powerful. And so anyway, thank you for bringing that up because I do think it's really important that people don't put those kind of pressures on themselves because don't expect other people are going to see what you see. It doesn't work that way, They're going to have a relationship with you or they're not. Yeah. And how much work you want to put into it, I think matters a lot to them. So it's kind of a neat thing. Anyway. All right. So having said that, now I'm trying to figure out where I am so I can pick up on presenting this to you. Okay. So in the first instance, you have to believe in them, right? You have to believe in their existence, and that can be hard. But once this bridge has been built, you can't undo it. So for centuries, we've created a picture on how these elemental building blocks look, and these images get fed back to us. For example, gnomes are traditionally seen as small human-like beings, like we were talking about, like 1 or 3 feet tall. Much of this is portrayed in the traditional things that we hear about gnomes. If they're presented or present an image to us, say, of a golden rock, we might not identify it as an elemental spirit. In a similar way, a fire elemental would likely show itself as a fiery being rather than a bright spark of light, right? So you get what's talking to you, what it is. And I think it's so really cool that they know that. And I shouldn't be sitting here in wonder of how intelligent they are, but obviously they are. They present mental images to us quite often, and that reflect our understanding of their domains. They read not only our minds, but are also accurate about our consciousness, our feelings, and our spiritual awareness. A person who disrespects nature, okay, and this was interesting, will never gain their sympathy or support. Never. Ooh. So we do not appreciate how clearly these emotional qualities show up in our individual fields, which can be easily read by them. So to gain the respect and help of the elemental kingdoms, you have to have a love of nature. Healing the earth, trying to heal different earth energy situations without the aid of the elemental kingdoms is kind of like trying to carry out surgery blindfold, okay? Using just your sense of touch. These beings are intimately aware of what is going on energetically on the planet, so that their help is of great value to us. It is vital. You will need first of all to be open to these realms with your hearts, and through your hearts, and wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to say. You will need first of all to be open to these realms through your hearts, and one of the first places to start can be working with crystals. Okay, and the reason I got a little bit lost is because there was a notation I put down in channeled writing in reference to the crystals. So many people today acquire crystals as an aid to this connection. I sometimes wonder how many stop and think about how the crystal arrived in the shop that they were purchased from or stall to be available for purchase. If you have a crystal, I suggest that you go and pick it up for a few minutes, feel into its energy, or at least the energy of the place from where it's been mined or taken from. Over many years, I've rarely sensed a feeling of well-being from such places, and very often the crystals themselves are quite traumatized. Indeed, in some cases, I felt outrage and anger from some of them. So that sounds really strange, I know, but we know that they carry energy. We know they're recorders. We know that you can program them. If you can program them, then they have an intelligence. So if they have an intelligence, why is it such a far leap for us to understand that they may also have a lot of other things like sensibility, sensitivity, consciousness, an understanding, a memory of exactly how they were taken, Indeed, in some cases, this outrage of crystals can be quite damaging to them for long periods of time. So crystals are beautiful, but do not forget that they had a part to play in the landscape from where they originated. Removing them can cause an imbalance. One of the first acts, if you own a crystal, would be to send it a thought of healing to the area from where the crystal originated. So that was kind of neat. when I first came across that. You can also communicate with the crystal in asking its forgiveness for what it's been through and letting it know that the distribution of these semi-precious stones can help people find a new level of respect and understanding for the earth. So kind of like we do when we pick up and move, wild creatures on the earth too, and capture them for us to look at, for our own experiences to maybe help humans understand and have more compassion, greater love and respect for animals worldwide. Crystals seems like are having the same or similar kind of experience. Or when we remove a rock, there's lots of state parks, national parks. I mean, I know they do it because they don't want to be rockless, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about the importance of those energies and that collective. Remember that the elemental kingdom likes to show up in multitudes. They like to be in groups. So when you're taking pieces and parts of them and some of them, and scattering them around in different places, it might be nice to have some honor and respect for what it is that you're doing. And we're not saying you're the ones who mined them or took them. That's not what we're saying here, but I think you all get it. So just being aware of that. I would suggest that you take your crystal out into nature. So here's a way that we can heal them and work with them, okay? So if you want to deprogram them, so to speak, help heal them and bring them some solitude, to take it into nature, preferably away from people, and place the crystal on the ground and ask the earth, the spirit of earth, for her help, telling her why you want to use the crystal and how it might help you in your healing or inner development. So that's one way that we can help them. The next step is to invite an elemental being to come into the crystal to work with you for a while. So if you have a specific intent or purpose, if your intention is sincere and your request, then your request will be answered and you'll be given a new ally. And here we're entering into the space here now where we talk about how we begin to connect to these elemental beings. And it says that if your intention is sincere, your request will be answered and you'll have a new ally. Once you're aware of the presence of an elemental spirit that's come to work with you or spend time communicating with you, trying to understand its unique nature and how it can best help you is well worth your time. Working with elemental spirits, once you've begun to build a connection with an elemental spirit, they can help you in all sorts of ways. Earth elementals are generally the easiest of all the beings to contact. So keep that in mind. Gnomes, spirit beings connected to, anything to do with earth, minerals, rocks, that kind of stuff. There's other kingdoms too. We haven't even talked about the plant kingdom, but that's a whole other addition here. So with fire being the hardest one, you want to remember that that's going to be a little trickier to bring in the elemental. So you might have to do a little bit of extra work. It's just saying that it is possible, okay, to connect with these if we show them deep respect, earn their trust, and we stay with it. Obviously opening our hearts and showing great love for the earth. However, they are also attracted by your inner nature, so that a naturally fiery person will more easily attract a salamander or the fire element than a person who's very placid. So they are relative too. They are attracted to your vibration or how you resonate. Doesn't mean you can't connect to the others. It just means it might be easier. In the temples of the past, such as in ancient Egypt, elemental forces were invited to help with all sorts of tasks. They might make excellent psychic guards, and their help can be requested when strong protection is needed. So, for example, gnomes will look after your possessions, while sylphs or air elements love to ride on the bonnet of your car. Bonnet, that means roof, for those of you who aren't English, and will protect you on your journey. So people in the past sometimes have invoked these elemental spirits into magic implements with which they work, like, I don't know, magic wands, top hats, whatever, crystals, all kinds of things. We may want to play with an exercise here. So just to suggest to you that there's things that you can do, and whether it's like meditations or exercises, to really get closer to and invoke them. So I think I'm going to put this probably in a text as we send it out to our audience, my list of people that this video is going out to, so that they can actually do this. But it says that you may want to play with an exercise to invite an element to make itself known to you. So if you close your eyes for a moment and pay close attention to what you see, hear, feel, or know is happening to you, you may begin to feel them start to communicate with you. Elemental attunement exercises begin as the process of learning to communicate with elemental beings, and that can be carried out in these exercises of finding a very quiet place to sit in a garden, a park, a wood, if you want to particularly communicate with these beings. If it's an undying being, like a water being, you'll want to be beside, helpfully, a lake, a stream, the sea. If it's fire, you might want to sit by a fire or build one. Close your eyes and try to imagine all of these energies being close to you, coming in, sensing you through your body, imagining that your heart is a bright yellow marigold flower opening, or a lotus blossom. The opening of the heart, the calling of them, the placing the elements around you, the sitting in the sense of all of these energies and allowing your essence to just reach out, and reach out, helps you to start building trust with them and asking them to come and be with you. Once you have gained trust with these, once this process has been started, there will be options for communicating with the nature kingdoms whenever you're in a park, a garden, or a woodland. By continuing to send your love out through your heart, these kingdoms will hear and respond to you, dancing alongside you in your walks, being very patient and perseverant. You will find that you start to gain their trust and start to feel their presence around you more and more. It's complex nature in trying to bring about this connection of physical soul and spirit being of man is something that comes together in a certain sense and belongs to the external world. So what you're doing in these instances is you're building a bridge again, your body being the one that is calling forth a higher intention of connecting it through love to this kingdom, bringing in all of these forces in this connection, this respect, this love, this honoring relationship, this oneness. And in that, you're creating, again, something new. And this something new is this connection of all of the levels of your existence. So everything is connected. Each element of nature coincides in all of the kingdoms. But there's also another layer to this. One of the layers we have in the material plane that we perceive to be a 3 or 4 dimensional reality, and on another, we have the material whoops, we have a level which is the ethereal realm. So the ethereal, the physical, and us create this connection, this amazing bridge of energy that helps us to experience both worlds, all worlds, simultaneously. And that creates a whole being. If we don't have this solid connection with the energies that are within and higher, through us, ourselves, the connection with ourselves and our connection to this earth, and then the invitation of all of those elements that seem to be outside of ourselves but really aren't. Once that all comes in too, then you have this beautiful wholeness that we experience. So in their calling to us, I guess what I'm getting at, and I'd love your opinion on this, the reaching out with us at the invitation to talk about all these things, to call our attention to this in this time, in this world, is also offering to us ways in which we can truly understand, find our path to our wholeness, perhaps even what we've all been missing. Whatever it is that we are still looking for, sensing that is, that empty space in us, the part that we feel we're missing, the piece of the puzzle, the constant need to heal, to search for what it is that, is just escaping, eluding us. I feel and am sensing through everything that you and I've talked about and researched and come across with all of this information, that this is the missing key, and that's why we brought it in as a key talk. That it certainly is worthy and due the focus. It is of as great importance to our soul evolution, if not more so, because until we recover that, I don't know that we can move forward. So this is a moment in our evolution, ascension, soul experience, grounding, earth connection, wholeness, oneness, unity experience that is vital. This is something that I'm hoping everybody will understand the importance of, and that they will really seek to at least experience, play with, attempt, try to have this connection, this relationship come back into them.
And that's what I'm getting from what you just said, is that fullness, the fullness that comes from, first of all, the acknowledgement, the honor, the respect for these beautiful beings, and then the interaction with them leads to the integration so that we are full and whole for where we are in this space and time.
So I agree with you. Do you think, this is another thing that I was thinking about, I was sensing that it may not be as important, what we do, but that in honor of, that we, begin to honor, to respect, to pay homage, not worship, but connection and honoring and respect every time we do something. Not that we have to go out and be, green people, or that we have to, I'm not even sure that that's as important or what they're requesting. Maybe that will come out of the unity, maybe that will come out of, but that we begin to understand the depth and the reality, the truth of their existence, of them as a people or as an entity, as essences, just as we are, of life. And in and through that, we can't help but release or connect to their power and And the healing starts to take place with everything, with nature, with the earth, it's in the elevation, I think, of our hearts, of our thoughts, of our minds, to know that when we're doing something, that we're carrying great reverence and grace. That's the word I was looking for. Reverence and grace and honor of all of life that's around us, and not just blowing through it and destroying it and upheaving it and moving it, and that we understand like that. And I guess like the more primal primitive cultures did, our ancestors did, they always understood the importance of the earth, because this is where we live. This is what gives us life, and we give life unto it. So yeah.
And that's perfect. That's perfect, because the thread is bringing everything together. I don't know of anybody who wouldn't support having more allies to work with as a team, mm-hmm. so that we can all really recognize why we are on this planet and how we can support the planet itself as well as ourselves by working together, just with that grace and that acceptance that these are not just my relatives, these are me.
Yes.
Because it goes back to that oneness. It's like, how do I want to respect myself as I am honoring and asking for blessings for these beings?
Yes, absolutely. I think that this is probably a good place to end our conversation. I think that, today's enlightened people, they might laugh when they're reminded that, older folks used to see gnomes and everything earthly. But however, when knowledge is no longer obtained by means of abstract, combining abstract or logical thought, but by uniting ourselves through our thinking with world rhythm, we start to rediscover the elemental beings contained in everything, right, of a solid earthly nature. And even though these elements may be in all kinds of ways cunning and clever and sly and all of those things, that they're really, really hoping beyond all hope and still engaging with us and trying to get us to have relationship with them. I just wanted to, if we haven't covered it, I'd like to cover it again a little bit, and that's just on a up positive note, to talk about some of the ways that these beings can work with us. We've talked about the ways that we can have relationship with them and bring them into our lives. And I do want to stress that what I do know is once they attach themselves to you, they never leave. I've had my own personal experience with one that came into my life and told me he came into my life and was an elven at the time, which I really didn't understand anything that was happening at the moment. And I didn't understand how I got the experience. But anyway, he's been attached to me ever since. And now I find that, decades later, the importance of that relationship and that partnership. And now I can start getting, guidance and information and support from not just him, but his entire realm. Because, when they come to you and attach themselves to you, it's usually one of their leaders or their spokespeople. So they carry with them a lot of beings, as we've talked about. But some of the ways that they can work with us, that they can help us, if you want to start calling on them or asking them to, and especially in service of the earth or your work or anything in your personal life. So, for example, if you want the earth element itself or elementals are helpful in calling on protection. So if you need protection, you can call on the elementals of the earth, and they will protect property, and they'll protect your home. So possessions, property, on your life, on anything that you need protection over. Finding things, and I know a lot of people go, oh, I don't believe in all this negative stuff, protection, whatever. But we all at some point call on protection, so let's just admit it, we do. They can also help you with acquiring money and material things, and your gardening, which I thought was kind of cool, because you think about it, it's the gnomes, right? So the gnomes are really good at all of this. They're very solid beings. Water, help with emotions. So that if you're calling on water endines or undines, they help with emotions, stability in emotions, or to be more open with your feelings. They can cleanse and purify water. So if you want you have any bodies of water, or you just have water that you're intaking, you want to cleanse and purify it, you can call on them and they'll do that. They also will come in protection of you when you're on water, or sailing, or taking a cruise, or swimming, or anything like that. So that was nice to know too, and that's probably why sailors and all sailing men saw mermaids around them, all the time when they were sailing in the ancient days. And they thought nothing of it. That's in fact what they put on the front of their ships, right? So, but they don't exist, right? No. All fantasy. So when caring, I just think this is also cool. Fire element. So the fire element, fire element, when carrying out healing on earth, they protect, and they're powerful cleansers, such as with helping you to heal all types of negative energies or situations. So you can always call on fire. Transformative experiences. Air, I missed that, so I was backing up to it. Air beings, the air elementals, help you to find information or protection when you're traveling. So if you're looking for information or you need to be guided in certain circumstances, you can always call on them. And I would imagine that they also still apply more to anything that has to do with like your three-dimensional, your personal, your human life. So these are very participatory in their energetic fields, which is really neat. We can always use, like you said, a little bit more help. They can send us mental images or actually put them in our minds. They can give us ideas of their world, which is really neat. They can also read our minds and feel what we're feeling, as well as how spiritually aware we are. Important to note here is that any person who disrespects nature will never gain their sympathy or support. We did say that earlier. I felt it was important to stress. So you might not want to waste your time, but I would still encourage you to try. Nothing is impossible. Keep trying. They may respect it. So, yeah, I think that noteworthy here also is that they also hold their own beliefs around their world. They have their own agenda. And even if it's impossible for us to ever consider or understand what their agendas are, it's okay, because they know in their own reality, in their own world, what the planet needs, and especially at this time. And even if we don't agree with it or know what they're doing, that they're going to do it anyway, because they don't answer to us. So that's another thing that I needed to point out. If you ever have a thought or a feeling or want to go out and say work on the earth, I mean, it's always wonderful that you do. We never discourage you, or I would certainly never even begin to tell you what you should or should not do. And none of this information is presented for that reason either. It's just an offering to you of information that we've come across, and in my experience, what they're asking us to tell you. And I've had a lot of prompts, a lot of material I've had to throw out and not talk about, and stuff that I am talking about. So they want you to know that if you want to go participate in physically, mentally, consciously, spiritually, working on healing the earth in any way at all, that it's always good to consider inviting them in. And they suggest to us, and this was their little pity, they suggest to us that to not invite them in or consider them to help us with healing of the earth would be just as weird as trying to do a surgery blindfolded. So you might want to just call them in and ask them to come and help you. So again, I just am in wonder and awe that this experience, this journey for me coming into this conversation with you, Betty, and all the investment and time and work that we've put into it has been so incredible. I mean, like you said earlier, there's just so many layers to it and so many ways that it has awakened different understandings, different thoughts, different concepts, approaches, and even things within my own beingness, spaces that I've made for them. And I'm sure the same has been for you. I feel so much closer to and woven, with them. And understanding in ways, like I said, so many experiences I've had in the past that I've really not understood. I just accepted, and thought were wonderful, of course, but didn't really know what was trying to speak to me or how it was or why it was at the time. So this is really such an honor to be sitting here at this point and know how right on the precipice of an evolutionary opportunity we are, because not to take it, not to do it, I sometimes wonder if that could be we might have some regret in it, although there's a part of me that knows that we will always end up where we're going to end up in time and space, and that we always are connected. So I'm just hoping that, we will all understand the love and the grace that they've shown us. And by reaching out, by getting our attention, by, throwing some really silly experiences at me several months ago that sent me seeking, that really, really shocked me and made me be awake again and listen to them and hear. It's just a comedy of errors that awakened me from nature itself. So I'm just really happy to be sitting here with you today and to have had this chance to bring this all forward, to speak of the love that they hold for us and hopefully that we do for them. And I invite any comments that you have or anything you want to say.
I'm so grateful for the opportunity to, when you invited me to be part of this discussion, because as we have been preparing for this, it helps me to understand on so many more levels how these beings are ambassadors from Source, and they are here to support the existence of the planet. And it just makes my heart happy to acknowledge that and to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you. Thank you so much for having me here and for being with me and holding the space and doing these conversations. I just enjoy them so much, and I hope that everybody else will too.
Yes. Thank you, Robin.